What's going on, guys? I'm Dan Newton and this is Behind the Chalkboard. In today's world, education establishments are run just like businesses, and I've made it my mission to meet the people behind the scenes and dig deep into what it really takes to make a successful education business. If you think you'd be a good guest, drop me an email at dn@charlesgarth.com. Enjoy the episode. Matt, thanks for joining us.
No
Welcome
problem.
to Behind the Chalkboard. Really appreciate you coming on, mate.
No problem.
But yeah, as always, with all our guests, we like to know the backstory and your journey really into the world of education.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, take us back as far as you can.
Yeah, so I set up the Multi-Academy Trust Association 3 years ago. I was thinking on my way here, kind of my journey to getting to set up a business, I guess. My family are pretty much the split between my two current worlds. So my dad had his own business in steel stockholding, but my mum worked at my primary school. So as embarrassing as that is, having your mum working at your primary school, it also probably unveiled that world a little bit to me. Every day after work, every day after school, waiting for her to finish work. So I'd be sat inside the admin office of the school. The teachers at the school would kind of become aunties and uncles to you. So you see the insides of how a school operates, how stressful it can be. And anyone who knows a village primary school will know the receptionist or the admin person of that school is one of the most known outside of the head teacher. Yeah. So that's what my mum did. My other two sisters, both older than me, are within the education sector or were up to recently. So one of my sisters is a qualified teacher in primary, and then my other sister works for a teacher training company. So it's all around me, really.
It's in the family. It's all in the family.
Yeah, but just before kind of starting this, I mentioned that I went to university and did something completely different, which was film and TV production. Fell into the event space and then went from there really after COVID to set up Matter. But going back to secondary school, I loved school, to be honest. Quite thankful to be able to say that. I know it's not the experience for everyone. I went to a normal comprehensive state school in Halifax, and I found my time there really good. They had some really good programs at that point of kind of nurturing a bit of entrepreneurship, which I think I'll get onto a little bit later, of something that I think can be done a little bit more as well. But hopefully that gives you a bit of context.
Yeah, no, totally. It's good. It's talking about liking school. I actually like school. It's funny. I've just seen little kids. They're back in nursery again and all that, and seeing all kids start school again, and it brings back some really good memories. Mm-hmm. And like you say, it's not for everyone. Everyone has different experiences, but I really enjoy school. And so to take us back while you were at school, you were enjoying film and media at that point. Then you already had an interest for it, and that's why you decided to then pursue it after school.
Yeah, I wanted to become an editor.
Okay.
So this is, I'm 28 at the moment, and this is going back to when YouTube started, I guess.
Right.
So you looked up on
so
YouTube.
You're in that area, yeah.
And I loved making introduction videos to people on YouTube.
Okay.
So some of the well-known people at the moment in like the Sidemen circle.
Yep.
Going right back to their early days of YouTube. I used to help make introductions for their videos.
Did you?
When that was a cool thing.
So you
none of them do that now, but yeah.
Interesting. That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because now these guys are, multimillionaires. They're literally living the dream from YouTube.
Yeah, I should have stuck within that circle.
I was going to say, you were in it.
Yeah.
You were literally in it. So you saw the opportunity.
Yeah, being on Skype calls with like KSI.
Yeah, I know these people. For those that don't know KSI, I mean, everyone should do, but yeah, big YouTube.
Yeah, going a little bit left field here, but he's his friend called Cal Freezy.
Yes.
Yeah, I helped put together quite a bit of his kind of multimedia content introductions to videos when he was bigger than the likes of KSI. So that was where kind of that editing dream started.
And then you took that through to college?
University, yeah.
Right through to
I went
university.
sixth form before that.
Studying media,
Yeah.
etc. And then you left university, how old?
21, is it?
21?
Yeah.
And then it was looking to start work?
Yeah, looking to start work. And at that point, I was working during the weekends, travelling back every weekend, working at Land Rover, which was just a weekend job. Right. Pretty much on front desk, meeting and greeting a lot of different people. I think that brand in particular, you meet everything from your farmers all the way through to, you really high end.
Yeah.
So yeah, meeting a lot of new people in that job, which probably led me into going a little bit wider on my search for jobs when it came to full-time work.
Yeah.
Which went into events. Which
is, when we spoke, you said you'd done some event work. So take us on to that. You obviously found I think listening to your story, you've always been quite creative, I think, obviously doing intros, thumbnails, this type of thing. You're quite creative. And I think the events world gets you that creative spark again. You're able to create something for other people. So what was that first move then after Land Rover to then think, I'm going to get into events? And what was it doing?
Yeah, so I worked at an organisation which did a really large exhibition in the education sector. Right. And naturally working around that education sector, you have to do things a little bit more creatively. And I really enjoyed that. I was there for 3 years and then COVID comes about. The exhibitions aren't going ahead, so I had to kind of step out of that role. But I think going back to that creative process, I think you put something together and you see the end result. And it's really nice when people are walking back out the door of that conference or exhibition and saying that they've had a great day. That's a really nice experience.
Yeah, that's what drives you on, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, very, very similar. I love doing that. Even like this, like the podcast, it's amazing to see something start and, see it come to life. It's a big moment. And you obviously, you've enjoyed that. So obviously, COVID hit and that collapsed the events industry literally overnight. Mm-hmm. I know that everyone was I remember going to some events when COVID was in the middle and we were all like, it's still happening, but we're all standing miles apart from each other. We're all having masks on. I'm kind of like, we're clinging on here. We're clinging on for dear life. And it was because there was so much money involved at the time that, so that must have been quite tough. Was that, were you laid off at the point or was it a decision that you stepped away from it?
No, stepped away from it.
Stepped away.
I stepped into another events company for a few months before having conversations with our current group CEO who wanted to launch an education arm to their group company, which was perfect.
Right, okay, so this makes sense now. So Matter then, the Multi-Academy Trust Association was formed off the back of something that was already live. And is that
so
right?
The group company's actually healthcare focused.
Okay.
So he wanted to go into education. We launched a conference in education, which was around growing trust, onboarding new schools, which we still do to this day. And off the back of that came conversations with different CEOs from trusts and how they were talking about how much of a struggle budgets are at the moment. And I remember one talking about a relegation zone of budgets, which any football analogy with me is always way easier to understand.
Yeah.
So he was talking about the relegation zone of budgets. He was talking about membership groups.
Okay.
Where he wasn't quite sure how much value he was getting out of his current membership groups. So I said, is there any that are free out there? He said, no, not really, not for trusts anyway that I know of. So I just thought that there kind of springs the idea. Spoke to a few other CEOs and that's where it was kind of birthed out of, really. I was just silly enough to go into that and launch it.
Fair play. So what year was that then?
So that's 3 years ago now. So I think the brainstorming started in April 2021.
Yeah.
It went live for that next academic year, in September, October time.
Okay, so just tell us a little bit about this then. So I came across Matt a year ago, I think a couple of years back, seeing the work that you've done. And ultimately, from the outside in, what I saw it was a multi-academy trust association of lots of trusts can come together, share best practice, and put on presentations and kind of just network with each other.
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit more about it then, and what were the early days like? Because, this whole podcast is about the business side of education, and you created ultimately a business. How many trusts did it start with?
It started with nothing.
So it started with zero trust, couple of contacts.
I guess you could class those who were on the advisory board, who are active roles within trusts. They would have been our first members. So I think there was 6 at the time. I think we're now up to 10 on the board. So we built the website. We pressed the go live button with no trust, and you genuinely just wonder at that point, are we going to get any trusts? Nobody knew myself really within the space.
What were you offering at this point then? So the website went live. What was the offer to get them in?
The offer was a free membership group where we would share latest news, best practice, and access to the conferences.
Right, okay.
That we run through the year. So there's not a whole amount of conferences. They would have been free at that time. So we'd have mailing lists around that really. But we knew that we needed to get that membership up as soon as possible. So we tore the line of being quite level politically as an organisation, and down the middle of the road on that. And we launched with a feature which was Find Answers to What Matters. I can't claim the credit to that name, unfortunately. Which was essentially an anonymous Q&A with our board. And we had some really interesting questions through on that of real issues that they were facing that you wouldn't want to have or trust as an off-the-record conversation with your regional schools commissioner or Ofsted, of course. So they looked at our platform and said, yeah, it's guaranteed anonymity. I'll ask these quite tough questions to other CEOs of trusts and see what they would advise, where you hope that conferences and events do bring that out, but you've still got to put your hand up in the middle of a room and admit a bit of a defeat maybe, and I don't think that's something that goes on as much as we would hope in events. So yeah, it was a good platform for that as well.
Brave. I think brave. You'd obviously seen opportunity. You thought, let's get a few people together and kick on. And I think that shows a lot of persistence and determination. That's what it really that's what it really takes to start businesses a lot of the time. So you had your first cohort of multi-academy trusts that came in, and they were obviously then telling their friends, telling their other colleagues, we're involved in this association, you need to get involved. And what was then the point where you started to bring in support? Obviously, you realised that at this point you were like, right, there's quite a lot going on here. We need to start maybe doing presentations and bringing partners involved. So just talk us through that journey. Did you get to a certain amount of multi-academy trusts and then bring them in? Or did you bring them in early and then bring more trusts on?
Yeah, I probably can't put a finger on kind of the number of mats that we were at when we started hiring a couple of people to help out with the marketing side of things. Probably around the 100 mark. So we've got 600 trusts at the moment. 600
trusts within the group.
Which...
run by you.
Yeah. Which is still a shocking statistic.
It's incredible.
In terms of good, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
The advisory board and myself put together a target of 200 by year 3. There and thereabouts.
So you've absolutely smashed through that.
Yeah, and I thought that would be pretty tough going.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges that I expected that didn't come up, which is a credit to kind of the value of that free to join side of things, is I thought I'd be ringing trusts and asking them to become members, or we'd have team members who would be encouraging membership from trusts and kind of quite happy to report that we've never done that. I think we sent 3 or 4 emails to education data at the beginning, and then since then we've maybe done 2 or 3. All the rest of it is social media or at the events and promoting it there.
Yeah, 600. It's incredible going.
I think it's about 60%. There's no official number on how many multi-academy trusts really.
Yeah.
If you're going back a few years, it might have been around 1,300. I think it's more 1,100 at the moment.
Right.
You had things called empty mats, if you recall. They're not really such a thing at the moment. And there's a lot of merging going on as well in the sector now.
So the idea then, you brought them all together, you brought partners in to help kind of run events, but, I see they do like exhibitions and things, you do talks on and things like that. I guess the idea now is to just keep offering value all the time, and that's keeping them up to date on policy changes, etc. Sure. So I'm guessing that's the goal now. Obviously with the topics around education, and I want to speak to you a bit about this, is like, what do we see the challenges for a lot of these? Do you just find yourself every time trying to put on talks about finances and things? Because obviously that is something every education leader I speak to, that always seems to be the topic, which is we're stretched on finances. It seems to have been like that forever.
It's been it since I've come into the space in 2017, going back to the exhibition that I worked on. So finances, it seems like it's always going to be there. We've just got a new government. It's still very much there and still anticipated to be there for many years. We've had some really big changes in the last few weeks around Ofsted and moving to the report card system rather than the one-word judgments, which they were forced into with kind of numerous issues that had happened. So, we're seeing a bit of reform. I think just going back to kind of the challenge that even I face is keeping up with the policy itself is really tough. There's organisations who have been in this space for 30, 35 years and are probably 40 years senior on myself and have had relationships with central gov for many years. So that's a tough part, actually. I think other organisations sometimes maybe know the changes that are coming before us. But thankfully, we can be really flexible to change up agendas, have new speakers on the events, bring in new partners for the association as well. But I think having the CEOs on that advisory board to say, what's it like in a school at the moment? Where are the challenges? And kind of answering your question now, finally. But the challenges going on at the moment, I mean, we've just got to a point of the average parent now, first-time parent, is over 30 years old. Because times are tough for people on cost of living. So when you get into the average parent, first parent age being 30 years old, the reduction in student numbers is going to be massive. That's a huge challenge at the moment.
Interesting.
Working out how many babies are born within your postcode, essentially.
Because I guess, it's things like that. It's things that you don't think about, It's not something I'd, particularly think about. But, I'm 38. We've got 2 boys, 3 and 1.
Exactly.
Where that statistic. And I think, times changed, didn't there? And you've still got the parents that have kids a lot earlier, you've got those that have them a lot later, but I'm guessing just the way things are and that you then get a lot older. So then, it's a knock-on effect.
It is, and school places aren't going to be as competitive as maybe what they have been in the last 10, 15 years. Right. Not to be a sceptical, but and again, I really urge towards that report card system of Ofsted. It's what Wales do, and Wales' satisfaction on workforce in education is much higher than ours because of that report carding system. It's going to be an ongoing dialogue of improving the school. It's not going to be we'll visit every 4-5 years, give you one word of what your school is and barely any context unless you look into the full report. it's going to be an ongoing dialogue of improving your school, which I think is welcome. But the skeptic within me, I was thinking actually on the way here, is there a bit more of a reason behind it? And they're pushing the whole narrative of parents won't be able to know with one word how good that school is.
Yeah.
And when you look at the reduction in student numbers, that helps that cause, because you're not going to have schools that are good or RI missing out on more students because everyone wants to go to the outstanding school.
Right.
So you're going to maybe see a bit more of a spread
Right, I see.
of students applying to different schools because they're maybe not in the clear picture of, is that an outstanding school?
Yeah.
You know, of course, having kids yourself, you'll want them to go to an outstanding school. If 1 mile down the road there's an RI school.
Yeah.
So yeah, there might be that.
Yeah, I've not really done too much looking into that side, but we did speak to a lady the other week that was involved with Education Trust, and she was talking about that, like the Ofsted marking system's been so off for so long that, you know, one school that's doing one thing in a deprived area and another in a richer area are marked exactly the same. Yeah. But then you get these completely way off kind of markers, and then people really can't judge it.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing, like, with the new marking system, is this live? Is this up and running?
As of yesterday.
So
day before.
I love bringing exclusives. Not like I brought us an exclusive last week. Actually, another exclusive.
Yeah.
It's good. It needed to change because then you get people looking at different schools that were overlooked before. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And Ofsted have gone through their real kind of training recently of looking after mental health of school leaders, which is welcome. Again, there's been some huge, main headlines that have gone all the way to mainstream news about how it does affect school leaders. Being marked, requires improvement, or even worse. So yeah, it's a welcome change for school leaders. I think it takes that pressure off of those 2 or 3 days. That's what's important.
It's quite interesting, your story, how you've gone from events and now you are full blown in the world of education and understanding a lot of the policies, and it's taken you down this journey which you probably thought you'd never be there, and you're well ingrained in the whole world of education, which means I can probably ask your opinion on the education system as a whole. We've all got our opinions on it. I think as we've got into a different world, into 2020, different ways of learning now, you can learn from a different, 1,000 different ways, whether it's online learning, whether it's AI learning. But our education system of learning is still very much, Stone Age era, classrooms driven. Here's a curriculum. This is what we follow. You're not in bother for any of this because they're not speaking about your opinion on it. What do you think about how we do it, how we mark it, and then how it's how then people go on in their life afterwards?
Yeah, I think when I know the question is coming up of improving the education system as a whole, one of my first points is always around that we're just not educating children to go into the real world. And forgive me on this, but I'm getting a bit fed up on kind of having that conversation, I guess, and DFE maybe not following through with bringing it more into the curriculum, the mainstream curriculum. When I think back to secondary school, probably one of the most memorable days that I had was BT came in and did an enterprise day, and you had to create a product. I think my group made a self-cleaning shoe or something completely unreasonable and unrealistic, but you had to pitch it to a panel of, I think it was probably 10 really high up people within the corporate world, so to say. And I thought, do you know what? That's a really memorable day on being creative, first of all, but thinking about how would it be feasible? How could you make this technology, or how much would you sell it for? How much would you make it for? Which, regardless of whether you're making up hypothetical numbers in that space, I don't know how much it costs to make a shoe when I'm 13 years old, but it made you think about things like profit and how does a will go about when it comes to business. And the panel that day treated us like adults.
Yeah.
They didn't treat us like children. They came around, they said, have you thought about this feature? Have you thought about how you'd promote it? Who would you sell it to? Who's your target audience? What's your USP? And I thought that was a really nice education piece, which sadly I don't think happens too much at the moment.
Yeah.
And I learned more during secondary school on not going and touching an electric pylon, rather than what's a mortgage, what's an interest rate, how do you pay for a car, what's a loan, what's a credit card. And even to this current day, I know it's still happening because I mentor a young guy in our company, in our group company, really motivated, really wants to do well in life. And, even up to yesterday, I went and visited his apartment to go help him with how do you get rid of damp, So it's things like that, which I don't think we educate on. And maths is always one that probably takes a hit on why we learn about Pythagoras and algebra rather than mortgages and loans and credit cards.
So it's a good point. My opinions are very, very similar, that we seem to miss the real life part of it. I remember being 17 years old, 17, 16. So I'd just left school. I'd not been left school long. And literally I was able to get an overdraft with Halifax, £1,500 overdraft. So I was 16, and I could go to the cash point, put my card in, and draw £400-500 out. Exactly. And I remember very clearly, I drew out about £800 of it and bought some alloy wheels for my upcoming Ford Escort. It was back then.
I feel like you're not alone on that.
Yeah, I'm not. And I'm there, 17 years old, 800 quid in debt before I've even got a job.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow, it's like free money. And I didn't come from a wealthy background. I didn't have parents that, that could teach me about finances. And I ended up just in the hole very, very, very quickly from an early age, ultimately trapped in the system. Yeah. And I don't think that we need to change the entire education system completely. We just need to do more in terms of adding in little bits. And I remember going to an education show, and Lloyds were there, and I was like, that's really interesting. I've never seen Lloyds at an education show. And I was like, yes, maybe we're on the right track. But it's just good to get opinions on it. I think we all think the same. Yeah. If we all think the same, why is no one changing it?
Yeah, it just seems to have been like that for a few years. I know there's some trusts out there that really focus on outdoor learning as well, and have a particular profile of student that they know are going to go more into that hands-on world of work, where they're not going to fit into a corporate background, so to say, or they wouldn't be classed as high achieving academically, but they'll put them into kind of courses, I guess, of agriculture, or there's a big agricultural college near here, isn't there? And that's what we need at the moment. Not an education system that fits all, I guess.
Well, hopefully it changes in our time, which actually leads us quite nicely onto, I don't think that we'll make the change. I think we'll be forced to change with AI. So I want to speak to you about AI. That's now making schools have to think differently. Things like AI headsets, virtual reality. You can literally be sat in a school classroom from your home with a headset. AI's around us all the time. It has been for many, many years.
Sure.
But what it's now able to do is change education completely. Just talk to us about your experience with AI and how you've kind of implemented it into your work, and then how you think it could change the education system.
Yeah, so I've used AI mostly for data related. So we had quite a simple form fill for new members when we started, which was, first name, last name, job role, organisation. But as we go on, we want to be able to segregate that data into where are they in the country, how many schools do they have. And amazingly, AI can now do that instead of me visiting every website of those trusts. So that's probably a few weeks ago when I started doing that. So within probably half an hour, I've had 600 trusts analysed for how many schools they have in the group and where they are in the country, which is really useful for us. If we have a northern conference, I don't want to be sending that to trusts in the southeast and southwest and getting unsubscribes. So I've used it for that. In terms of other bits, mostly admin. I don't use it so much for marketing content, and I don't kind of generate images out of it. But I'm sure I will do in the future.
Yeah. So then in the world of education side of things, was talking then about how we could change up learning and whether we need, ultimately, it's a point I think people bring in, do we need classrooms anymore? And the answer is probably no, but although we still do, I think human beings need that connection. But have you seen any of how AI is now able to teach going forward and how it could change how it could change learning completely?
Yeah, I think that intervention from a human teacher will always be needed. I think that's kind of my first asterisk on anything that I probably come out with now. But the modern teacher who, if I'm a modern teacher coming out of university at 21, I'm going to house parties or reunions with my friends and my friends talking about how they're working 35 hours a week and making more money than myself, burning myself out on 45 plus hours a week, prepping lesson plans on evenings. And I think now there's an understanding that teachers are leaving the profession way too early. Within the first, I think it's 2 years now.
Right.
It's something like 25% leave within the first 2 years of qualifying as a teacher.
Is that through? Would that be through like low pay and stress combination? The kind of accumulation of both, really.
So the low pay, yes, but the return in how many hours you're doing. It's tough graft, and
it is, yeah.
The school teachers that are now coming out of university, when interviewing with a school, I'm starting to hear are now asking, do you accept that I will use AI for lesson planning?
Interesting.
So,
okay.
Because we have such a low number of teachers graduating, it's flipped now, where the teacher is needed by the school more than the school is needed by the teacher.
Yeah.
Because we have such a shortage. Now, those teachers going into interviews, that's quite a brave thing to ask, and could be quite taboo to some, of, do you essentially let me shortcut my work or my marking? And the answer is becoming more and more now. Yeah, we encourage using AI as a trust or as a school to prep your lesson plans as long as you follow this framework that we're setting as a trust. So we're seeing AI strategies in multi-academy trusts now of how you source your data, how you source your lesson planning, say if it's history and you learn about World War II, how do you make sure that it's unbiased? That's one of the main issues of ethical lesson planning when it comes to AI. So
it is implemented, it is there.
Yeah, and even if it's not officially, there's many teachers already using it. It's just coming away from the taboo of it's a shortcut for work.
Yeah, it's a shame about the drop of numbers. I think teachers coming in, it is a shame because if the numbers are dropping, it doesn't get better. And I think with any industry, when there's a decline in something, I think what the first thing we do is what can we change to arrest that? When actually the reality is it isn't changing, and you need to change the entire system to get it back to where it wants to be. There's a lady, and I'm going to bring up a primary teacher here, but do you know Miss Rachel?
I don't.
You don't. So she was a school teacher, a primary school teacher, who then went online.
Okay.
So I know Miss Rachel because I've got a 3 and a 1 year old, and we watch Miss Rachel on YouTube.
Right.
She took her teaching career from school onto YouTube. She's now a millionaire. And it's them type of stories that I think inspire other people, that there is other ways of teaching. And yes, don't get me wrong, it's a YouTube channel, but she's getting her message across. You have 3, 4 year olds that are sat for an hour watching Miss Rachel talk about numbers, talking about, you know, how to say words, the alphabet. She's giving the lesson through YouTube. And that alone, sitting with an hour, is as good as an hour being in a school. And I think it's you can see her story. Yes, it ain't going to happen to everybody. You know, she's got 159 million subscribers, whereas with the class, she was teaching 12 kids.
Wow.
And probably getting paid a very, very low wage. So you can see now that what the internet, the world of AI, has brought. And I think that's the challenge, isn't it? It's how then do we change that fall? And I think people try to then change the situation when actually you need to maybe look at the bigger picture.
It's more about retention at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, if you can lower that 25% down to 10, you're probably having to hire, you know, 2,000 less of a black hole in teachers every year coming out of university. The push at the moment is, I think it's 6,500 new teachers.
Right.
That we essentially need.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the main challenge, retention. But if we can cut a teacher's hours down from 45 down to actually school hours, you know, it becomes much more manageable, and you can go out with your friends and you can go enjoy life outside of your career.
Yeah, which is, you know, when I was at school, I never thought teachers had a life. Did you?
Yeah,
They just come to school and teach.
I've got most of them on LinkedIn now, so...
oh, yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, normal people. Yeah, they are just normal people.
Exactly.
I saw an old school teacher the other day, I'm like, you're going for a coffee? Don't know whether to call them Mrs. Smith or, call them by
I
the
always
first name.
think that as well. Yeah, I always thought that. Because there's a National Thank the Teacher Day, which you do see come up on LinkedIn every year. So I tagged a few of mine. A few of them dropped me a message, and I thought, do I reply with hi, Miss Ball, or do I reply with the first name? Because I feel a little bit weird with first names, a little bit like footballers with Sir Alex Ferguson. You know, they call him still Gaffer.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter as a business, I just want to bring that up. What's the future for Matter? You've obviously built something incredible. It's working. Is there a long-term goal with Matter, or are you just enjoying the ride?
Not a long-term strategic type goal. We don't focus necessarily on what do multi-academy trusts look like in 10 years. And I think there's other organisations that do that much better than we could, given kind of their long-term partnerships and long-term within the academy sector since they started. So we're trying not to touch that really. Our strategy is more year on year, I would say, of growing the membership, growing the number of partners, getting better speakers to our conferences, making them more as a must attend.
Yeah. It's a really good setup, and I think multi-academy. You're always looking for new multi-academy trusts to join on, I'm guessing.
Of course, yeah,
always.
Of course.
So we can put a link onto this podcast to check out the website and stuff, and get people involved in that. And just final thoughts, really, Matt. Any advice for people that want to get into the world of education?
In terms of teachers, or in terms of the business world?
From the business side. So from your end, you kind of jumped in and you kind of not fell into it, but I think you were at events and you found education.
Sure.
But, from a business point of view, looking at your journey, if someone wants to follow what you've done, what advice would you give them?
Well, naturally, people in education as a space are really nice people who want to help. CEOs have typically come through the ladder of a teacher to a head teacher to a CEO of a trust. So naturally, they want to help younger people. That's what their whole career has been based off of. So my main advice would be get to know as many people who are outside of your remit of knowledge possible. most of the things I've said today are second-hand from, one of our advisory board or a speaker that I've had a chat to after an event, or someone in an active role within education. So attach yourself to, as many senior leaders, experienced heads that you possibly can, and then build around that, really. As an association, it's all based off of your membership. It's not about my vision whatsoever. It's based off of the direction of what does a CEO want from a membership.
Yeah.
So get close to CEOs and find that out.
Yeah, I echo that completely. Everything's around relationships, and if you can surround yourself with good people, it's that then pushes you forward. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you'd love to be a guest on here, please drop me an email at dn@charlesgarth.com. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.